Hi guys, I'm gonna just give you a quick introduction to today's video because I am starting a new series where I interview people that I've worked with one-on-one that have recovered from DPDR and existential anxiety. And today's episode is gonna be the very first one with Lauren. She's become a really close friend of mine, and her story is really incredible, and I know that so many of you are going to relate to it. So we're going to talk about how she recovered, tips she has for you, what her DPR looked like for her. It's quite a long episode, but I really think that every one of you will enjoy this. I'm also going to try and upload it on Spotify on my podcast Dying to Live, which is good if you don't really want to watch the whole thing, but just want to listen to the audio. But for now, this is the only availability right now on YouTube. So I want to encourage you to watch the entire thing or to listen to the entire thing. Put your comments, below if you have any questions for Lauren. And I just look very much forward to sharing this episode with you guys. Okay, so hi everyone to this very first episode of a new series that I'm about to start, where I interview people that I've worked with that have had a successful recovery with DPDR and existential anxiety. And today we are here with Lauren. Welcome, Lauren, to my YouTube channel.
Hi.
How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I feel great today.
Yeah, good.
Looking forward to this conversation.
So why don't you start by just telling everyone a little bit about, your story, what you struggled with, when it started, and just kind of take us through, what exactly you went through. Yeah.
Okay. So, if I think back to, it's kind of difficult because the way I felt at the time and the way I feel now is totally different, but I'll just go with like the way I felt at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it was like August 2021 when I started experiencing depersonalization, derealization. And at that time, I had no idea what was happening to me. It was completely out of the blue. And basically it kind of felt like I can't remember. I don't think there was I think people have like maybe like a panic attack or something like that. I don't think it was like that for me. It was kind of like I knew something was off.
Yeah.
And at that time, and then it kind of gradually got worse. So yeah, as I remember it, I was with a friend having lunch, and I'd felt kind of off for a few days, like things had just kind of felt a bit hazy, like not like my usual self. And he was kind of talking, and at that point I just remember feeling like my surroundings weren't real in a way, like as if there was some sort of kind of like haze or like filter over what was actually going on around me in this restaurant. And he's talking away. I hadn't seen him in years, and he then kind of said to me like, "Are you okay?" Like, and I was like, no. But I didn't really know how to describe what I was experiencing. So I was like, "How do you know that I'm not okay?" And he was like, "You're not, like, I'm talking to you and you're not like tracking my eyes, like." And I was like, something really just doesn't feel right. I just really don't feel right. And I was like, I don't really know what's going on right now. And I was like terrified, like so deeply terrified, because it was like I felt like I was going crazy. I was like, there's something like a bad trip almost. Like this is the best way I can kind of liken it to anything. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking though, like, it'll go away, it'll pass. Like I'm just not feeling great for whatever reason. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe, I was trying to like put it down to something that was going on. And I remember I was like, I just said to him, like, can we just like go? Can we just leave this, blah, blah? And he was like, yeah, of course. And then as we were leaving, we were getting the train home, and I was like, I need to go to hospital. Like something terrible is happening to me.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the hospital that night, and I was like, it was really hard, obviously, to verbalize it, and I thought at that time, I thought something's happened to my brain, like something's wrong with my brain, and I need, like, they need to look at it, like someone has to look at this and like figure this out. I didn't think it was like I had no real perception. I didn't know at all what any of it was, so, or anything like anxiety or anything like that. I'd never experienced that at all. So I was just like so sure that it was like a kind of like physical issue. Because that's the only things that made sense to me at that point in time. But I remember going to the hospital and like explaining how I was feeling to them, and I remember seeing I had actually like written like a list, and it was kind of just like, I feel like my surroundings are like unfamiliar, like I feel like really distant from people. I don't feel like myself, like even my body or like my reflection, and like everything was just looked different. Like my whole entire world was different, and I couldn't. It's hard to articulate. I think it only ever really makes sense if you know exactly how that feels.
I think that a lot of people that are watching know exactly what you're talking about, but to explain it to someone that has no idea what it is, it's like it's very weird. As you hear yourself speak, you're like, okay, this sounds weird even to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember saying that as well. I remember being like, if I didn't feel this way, this wouldn't make sense to me either. But I'm really trying to like find the words for it. But basically I was just sure that I was going crazy, that it was like psychosis, like that was that went on. So I thought it was going to go away. You know, at that point, I kept telling myself it'll go away, it'll go away. At that point in my life as well, I used to use drugs. Like I used to smoke a lot of weed, and I was familiar with that feeling and that sensation of like, obviously that gives you some kind of distance from yourself and your own thoughts in a like positive way. But it like I said, it's kind of like if like when it goes negatively, it was kind of like that. And I just thought like maybe I've smoked too much, or maybe I've taken something and it's kind of reacted with me or whatever. So I just kept thinking like it'll pass, and it didn't. It just got worse from that point. Because then like the fear kicked in. Like it was like it was just like running through my veins. Everything. It was like terror. Like I felt like, again, like if you know, you know, but like everything was triggering to me. Like my entire existence was like completely shattered. I felt like I was in an alternate universe. Like,
was that also when you started to have like the existential dread and fear, or did that come afterwards?
That, do you know what? That's hard for me to pinpoint actually when that kicked in. Because that almost was, it's hard to say, like none of it is worse than anything else of it. Do you know what I mean? I hesitate to be like that was the worst part or that was the worst part, because all of it was generally terrible. But that was really difficult because it felt like it was just like those thoughts on loop. I couldn't focus on anything or be present with anyone or anything at that time, because I was just like fuck. Like again, I actually think this is really nice. You know, when I like this morning I was kind of reflecting on a lot of this, obviously, and I like thought I wanted to say I don't actually remember specifically what I was thinking. And that is amazing, because there was a point in time where I thought, I'll never forget this. I'll never not think like this. And I was so sure of that. So I think that, like, I really want people to hear that as well, that I don't actually remember. I kind of remember. It was like I had like a specific thing with time passing. And I was like fixated on the fact that time was passing, or time was going to pass, so that meant everything was pointless.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that one.
Like that seemed to be just permanently on loop. I couldn't let go of it. I almost felt like I had to like figure it out for it to go away. But I couldn't figure it out because that's not how that works. It doesn't make it, you know what I mean? It doesn't, there's no like logical route out. But at that point in time, I was a really like logical thinker, and problem solving was the only thing that really made sense to me. And that those rules don't really apply to this, which I obviously had to figure out through that. But I think that's why it stuck for so long as well, because I was really like convinced that if I could think my way out of it, because that's how, you know, you're kind of taught to deal with things in life. But yeah, that kind of lasted, like the worst of it, I think, because I do think, well, for me personally anyway, there was like definitely stages. And the worst of it, like I didn't, in that point in time, at the worst, I stopped working. It affected every single facet of my life. Like, I didn't really see anyone or speak to anyone, because I couldn't hold a conversation that wasn't about what I was feeling. Like, it was just all I could think about or speak about. I was around like certain people, like two of my closest friends and like my family, like my mum and stuff. And they were amazing, like, but I can't imagine what it was like for them to be around me at that time. But yeah, that kind of worst part of it, where it was just like intense terror 24/7. And I should actually say as well, even though I was around them, I didn't feel in any way the feelings that I used to, or like do now, feel for them. My connection to them was like broken. Like, even like my memories didn't feel like mine, or I couldn't decide if they were right or not. There was no emotion in anything. So it was like I didn't really, like, I knew them, but I didn't know them. Like, I could recognize them, but I just not in the way that I had before. But yeah, that all of the kind of, if I was to go on, I probably had about fucking 50 symptoms. Like, I felt everything. The worst of it lasted like 2 months, I would say. 2-ish months. And then after maybe like the 2nd to 3rd month, I kind of started, like, I went back to work on like a phased basis, and I started to kind of try to see people. I was like, I would say I was probably maybe like, what's the phrase for that? Like agoraphobic, like agoraphobic.
Yeah.
At that point as well, like I didn't want to go anywhere or do anything. I also so badly wanted to go places and do things, because I just wanted it to go away. I wanted to be myself. I was like rejecting the entire experience. So yeah, it took some time for me to, because I got to a certain point, I was still feeling it all, but it was like somewhat less intense. And I felt like, okay, I really just want to try and do things that I want to do or used to do, and like try and see if maybe that'll help in any way. And at first it didn't really feel like anything. I still, you know, I was doing things, and I was places, but I was still really withdrawn, and I was still really in my own head and having all the kind of thoughts and stuff. And even at work, I wanted to mention this as well, because I think people will relate to it, that I couldn't stop Googling it, reading about it, watching YouTube videos about it, fucking every single bit of content online that I could consume about it, I would, because that made me feel like closer to understanding it, which made me feel like it gave me, like, if I would read something or see someone that had a kind of, that had recovered or whatever as well, that gave me some sort of light in that time to be like, maybe I can do it too, you know. So that's why I was like completely fixated and obsessed with that. Even like when I went back to work, I was still like, I was trying to like do the work, but I would be like opening tabs on the browser and being like still trying to Google it and stuff. And eventually I had to like stop myself from doing that. I remember I downloaded, you know, one of those like countdown apps, like I used it for quitting smoking and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm going to do one for not Googling my symptoms. And I wrote like, not Googling symptoms. and I was like, that'll like motivate me. Like if I can, because I knew I needed to stop it, because eventually I think it's just like, maybe it was just part of it for me. And I do think it was useful to a point. Like there is a point that comes where you're like, right, you've read everything you're going to read. And it can also be really negative as well if there's a lot of things on Reddit and stuff like that were potentially a bit damaging, because you take it really seriously in the moment when someone else.
If you read someone that has had it for a long time, then, you know, when you're in a state of anxiety, you'll subconsciously even look for those. Even if you want to get that confirmation that you can recover, you might read 9 positive messages and there's one that's like very depressing, and your anxiety goes, okay, that's what we need to prepare for, because that's the worst case scenario. So even though you start off in a way wanting to get this temporary relief, which you sometimes get, you often end up with even more doubt and more questioning, which is why,
because you tell yourself that's going to be me. Like you can, it's exactly the way you said, you can read like fucking 20 positive things and you read one negative comment of someone that's like panicking and they've like written in that kind of headspace, and you're like, oh fuck, like I'm that person, I'll never get better. Like I was like, if you know, in that I wasn't certain of fucking anything in that time, but if I was certain of one thing, it was that I was worse than everyone else and I wasn't going to get better. And obviously I was wrong, and I'm so happy I was wrong, but in that time I was 100% sure.
Like when was the moment you felt like you were is that Louis? So when, you know, in that time where you were struggling and it was, you know, there's a point where you can function again, that's what you were just describing, where it's like, I feel like I can go to work again, I feel like I can, you know, live life again, but it's the quality of life obviously isn't, you know, the best that you would want. So when did you start to feel like it was getting better, and what exactly were the kind of tools or things that you discovered that really helped you out in your recovery and starting to feel better?
So a really key point, and it was when I started talking to you. That was like, because I had spoken to, like I was willing to do whatever it took to get better, whatever that meant. And I thought, okay, you know, people that are struggling go to therapy. Maybe I should be doing that. But I spoke to like 6 maybe therapists in that time. None of them, obviously they were trying some things that they would maybe say would be helpful, but I couldn't. They hadn't experienced what I was talking about, so I could tell that they didn't understand fully what I meant. And I was like, that won't work. Like if someone needs to get it, like they're not getting it. So I came across, obviously with the obsessive Googling, I came across your website and I read, you know, what you have, like your content on there. And I was like, oh my God, she gets it. Like this is, you know, and that feels like so affirming in that time, because you just like, it's such an isolating experience and all you want is to be understood, and like no one can understand you around you. Like it's really lonely. But when I read like what you had written, I was like, oh, like I really need to do this. Like I need to message her. And I remember doing an intake session with you, like 20 minutes or whatever. And after it, obviously I was explaining to you and whatever. And after it, I like went and sat with like my flatmate, who was amazing in this time as well. And I was like, I feel like this is something like I know because she'd heard every single thing that was, I'm going to do this and I'm going to try that and I'm going to, but I sat and I was sobbing and I was like, I really hope that like she can help me. Like, I think she can help me. And she was like, okay, like, and I hope so. And yeah,
I remember that intake session, and
do you?
I remember, yeah, of course I do, and I remember how much of a like completely different person you were back then. If I think about you now, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember actually when I was over visiting you and you said like you should look back and like
Yeah.
see the first message, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can read it. Like I
It
know
was
it'll be
already
like pure desperation, and I just
desperation. Yeah.
and I look back at it, and it wasn't really embarrassing. Obviously, it wasn't. I was just struggling, like nothing wrong with that. But even, the way I had written it in the language and stuff, I was like, I don't remember that. Like, I don't remember doing that. I remember the session, but I don't remember messaging you, don't remember any of that, like setting it up. But yeah, so sorry for your question. Yeah, starting speaking to you, there was a real turning point because you made me feel like I felt so much less alone. You also as well were like giving me like really really good advice, but really like proactive things, like things to be doing and reading and podcasts and like anything that you were giving me or saying to me, I was taking it so seriously. And I was, but it was because it did feel like it was starting to make a difference. And obviously you had introduced the concept of like spirituality and like faith to me, because obviously I had awareness of like religious faith and things like that, but that I had no, my family weren't religious. I had really no place for that in my life or understanding of that. And it's not obviously religious faith that I'm talking about, but I just mean that's what I thought in that time. I just thought that's not for me. Like
anything that's not rational or I can't rationally calculate in my mind is like discountable.
Yeah, I was like, okay, bullshit. Like that really changed things for me as well, because see, the more that I started to lean into that, and like you introduced me to meditation and just like trying to like get that kind of connection to myself, that really was ultimately like what started to change things, I think, for me. I guess it's faith, like is the concept of it, just like knowing that this is something that I'm experiencing, that it will pass, that it's part of like a bigger thing, and that it started to just kind of like cultivate this like just giving me more confidence to keep pushing myself.
And what I also think is that it gave you a because I talk a lot about the concept of acceptance and surrender, and I think once you started to realize more and more that there might actually be a good reason why this was happening, and there is some change that obviously needs to happen within you. I think that made it easier for you to also surrender to the fact that this was happening, and just to say like, I accept that this is a difficult time. I accept that I have no idea what exactly is going on yet, but I'm surrendering it, and I have faith that you know, you never have 100% faith, you know. Something Lauren and I laugh about all the time is she used to say, I think almost every session when I told her to have faith, she said, I want to believe that. She didn't say I don't believe it. She also didn't say I believe it. She said I want to believe that. So you really like aimed for that hope and just surrender. We can laugh about it now, but that was definitely not the case.
It always makes me laugh, like like, especially when you do it in my accent. I think it's so funny. But that is so, everything you said, yeah, definitely. Like that's what it was. It was like I started to accept it.
Yeah.
And at first, you know, you had always been telling me that, and always telling me, you know, like to just like sit with it, to just let it. But I was like, no, I can't do that. I won't do that. No, I don't want this. I refuse. I refuse this. Like, this isn't happening to me. This doesn't happen to me. And then obviously, like through that, I did start to just go, you know what, let it happen. Let me feel how I feel. I feel like shit. I feel fucked up. I feel insane, but that's just what it is. And I might not always feel like that. And that's what I started to hope for. I started to like, it switched from like despair into like, how would I like verbalize that? Just into like hope. It did start to work or change. Like I got like moments of light at first, like where I would like feel like myself, or like feel, I just wouldn't notice it so much. And then I would, and then I'd go, oh, like it's just gonna keep coming back, like, and then those moments got like larger and larger and larger and larger, and then, you know, it's like back and forward and back and forward, and you go, but when that does start to happen, that does change things as well. But at that time though, I thought, I just told my friends, I just told my family, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking. And I'm saying that just because I've heard of other people's stories where they've went through it on their own, and they just maybe like didn't tell anyone and just like showed up at their job or whatever because they were afraid that people might judge them, or people might think they're like crazy or whatever. And I did have like some of that fear, but I also was just like, fuck it, like people say talk about your problems and that kind of helps you, and I'm just going to tell people. I told my work, I told my friends, I told my family, this is what's going on. And none of them knew what was going on, but all of them, not one person in that time was anything but like sympathetic and let me know if I can help you, and like, how are you? And, you know, and that, I'm so glad that I did that, because that really strengthened my connections as well with those people. Then telling people if I felt a certain way, or messaging you, or, you know what I mean, like in our sessions and stuff as well. I just got so much from it at that point, and I can't imagine going through that alone. Like, and like, I want to say to people, like, you don't need to, like, you can and should get support. And you don't know half of the stuff other people have been through as well. Like, I learned so much about people around me, and people opened up to me about their anxieties or periods in their life where they thought that, you know, it was never going to get easier. And that even strengthened my belief in myself, because I thought, look at them. I think they're amazing. I think they're incredible. If they can get through X, Y, or Z, then I can get through this. Like, I can do this.
So you've talked a little bit now about, you know, the things that helped you get through it. One of them being opening up, becoming more vulnerable to other people. But I feel also a big part of that was, you know, becoming a lot more kind to yourself and vulnerable to yourself. Because I remember in the first sessions, the thing you kept repeating was, I don't know why this is happening. Like, I don't understand. My life was fine. Like, I was happy. I was doing good. And then as we kind of evolved through sessions, you know, you and I both kind of realized that that wasn't really the case, and that there definitely was a desperate need for a transformation, for something that needed to change. So how and when, or like more, what do you think now, looking back to that entire process, was that bigger reason of why that needed to happen to you? And how do you now see that as a transformation?
When I think about, so at that time, yeah, I thought I couldn't understand it, because I was like, what, like my life to me was seemingly everything that I had wanted it to be at that point. I was like successful in my job. I had a really good lifestyle in terms of like the apartment that I wanted, and like the social life that I wanted, and all of this kind of stuff. I thought I was I just felt like I was who I wanted to be at that point. But when I really think about it on a deeper level now, I probably was actually deeply unhappy with a lot of things. Certain things that it kind of happened to me in my life on the run up to that, just in like my personal life. I mean, I had let them make me become really like hard, really like I had kind of always been this way to a certain extent, but I was super masculine. Like everything that I just like my coping mechanisms at that point were like overworking. I was a really heavy drinker. I took drugs like frequently. And even if I felt bad about anything, I would just be like repulsed at myself. I would be like, oh, get over it. Like just I was so unwilling to accept any issues or any problems, because I just felt like that was wrong. I felt like having issues and problems was wrong, and like I should just be above it. I should just be better than everything, and like not like it was wrong to struggle or something, possibly was my belief. But that also made me like really unable to have like deeper connections. I wasn't aware of it, but like I'm very aware of it now, how with like friendships or relationships that I was probably at times like difficult to be around, because I wasn't understanding about other people's struggles, because I didn't believe in feeling that way.
On like emotions or weakness. Yeah.
That is it. Like yeah. I really just thought, and I had like this is so funny to me now, but I had this like belief about myself that like as if I was really strong.
Yeah.
Because I didn't seem to struggle the way other people did. Eventually it wasn't like, nothing was like enough for me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I would be drunk, and I would be smoking weed, and I would be doing cocaine at like the same time. And at the time I just thought, this is what I want to do. Like this is just like what I like doing. And people would try and say to me like, cool it. And I would be like, you just can't handle what I can handle. Which is ridiculous. It's like embarrassing to admit.
No, not at all embarrassing. I just feel like the more we talk about, your before phase, the more amazed I am by how convinced you are that nothing was going on. Like,
yeah,
that everything was just like fine.
Yeah, and that was like a big part of it as well. Like you kind of like made me reflect on that, is that I didn't want to let that lifestyle go.
Yeah.
Like when this happened and I had to stop everything, I was like so unwilling to accept that. Like I wanted to continue living like that. Part of me knew that I was like right towards before it happened. Part of me knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't understand it. I just knew that I didn't feel great, and I had never like felt like that before.
So how do you feel like then that that whole process of going into DPDR and existential anxiety, which is the darkest thing that probably anyone will ever go through, how do you think that did change you for the better? And like what did you learn from it, and would you take it back?
I'm still myself, like at the core of it, like I'm still me, and That's probably really important to say that as well, because I thought that I wouldn't ever be me again, and I was like really, really upset about that. But it gave me the chance to like rebuild a lifestyle and things that are now so much more, I don't know, they just make me feel so much more at peace, and like I have everything. I thought at that point that I had everything that I could have wanted, but like again, I was wrong. I'm so happy I was wrong, because now I have way more than I ever imagined possible. I feel like so much better than I ever felt. And it really has, I just have like every single day now, I have like, so I feel like I'm going to cry. I knew I was going to do this. I just have so much gratitude for like all the small things that didn't matter to me before, and even just for like the people in my life, and for like my happiness and my health, and like it's even like, you know, meeting you and stuff, like it's just changed my life. Like it's like I just thought this is taken from me, but like it's given me so much more than it ever took. Like I have, like I said, I have deeper connections with my friends, with my family. Like I have like so much more emotional awareness for myself, for other people. Um, I I can't even like, I just think like I got to a certain point and it all just clicked and it all made sense, and I know why it had to happen now. And I'm so grateful for it. I wouldn't change it. Like, and I don't, and I want people to, like, anyone that's going through like this right now, or like whatever stage that you're at, like I really do want to say, like, for whatever reason, like it's happening to you for a reason. I genuinely believe that, and I hope that, you know, there's a day that comes that you feel like that as well, and I'm sure there will be. Like, no matter how many times I thought that I wasn't going to be okay, I was wrong. And I'm great. Like I'm so happy, and I have like a much healthier lifestyle, and I have great people around me, and I have like so much more purpose in everything that I do, and I really see things totally different to what I've seen them before, in the best possible way. And I still do things I like doing, because I remember at one point thinking I'll never be able to, like, I loved partying, I was a fucking party animal, like just all I wanted to do was just, all I was caring about was what was happening at the weekend and whatever. And I thought I'll never be able to do any of that again, like, and I can, and I do, but I do it differently. You know, I'm way more balanced. Like everything's so much more balanced. I have kind of like preferences and my likes and whatever that haven't changed so much, but I'm so much more like, my kind of like happiness is like within me. It's like deeper than anything. Everything, I realize now that everything externally is transient, and that it will move, and that it will, nothing, you know, I have a, like, it'll all transform, it'll all be different, like nothing's fixed. And I felt really uncomfortable about that for a while, as if like that was in some way, but that was because I was attached to things. I have like a lot less attachment to anything around me materially, because I know that all I really need to do is look after myself, check in with myself. Like my inner world is like my main focus now. See, I still do have ambition, like that is still part of my personality, but it's not in that way. It was just like I didn't ever even appreciate it, because by the time I had actually got there, I was already thinking about the next thing that I wanted. Whereas now it's like I'm just grateful for everything and anything. Like, you know, and I do, and I have like that kind of feeling of like whatever happens is for like my highest good. It's, you know, whatever is in my life or whatever way I'm feeling is just kind of like, it's for me, and it's like,
Yeah.
there's you know, there's a lesson in it, there's growth in it, there's something bigger always. And that feeling, I love that as well. Like something that you kept telling me as well about this was like, you won't, like, I remember you saying it to me once about, I think I was going to, like, I had an event or something, and maybe it was a wedding or something that I had to go to, and I was like still kind of struggling at this point, just with like feeling anxious. And like, I remember you saying though, like, sorry, it was I was just going on about worrying about what could happen or how I might feel, or what if I get upset, or blah blah blah. And you were like, you won't, you were like, just go as you are, like show up in whatever way that you feel and that you can, and you won't remember it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'll look back and it won't feel as heavy as it does right now. And you were right, like 100% right. Like, there was so many times where I thought, like, whatever it was that I was doing, like, you know, this is so bad, I feel so bad, like I feel awful, like ultimate like depression, like nothing could have made me feel good, no matter what anyone did or said or whatever was going on. But now looking back, I don't feel that about the memories that I have. Like, I don't remember them that way. I only really, obviously I can remember that, you know, like how I felt to an extent. I remember that it wasn't a good time, and I remember that I was struggling and stuff, but I can't feel it the way that I felt it. And I'm so grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like you did tell me a million
I told
times,
you all the time, but you have
times.
to go through it yourself in order to believe it. That's also something I kept saying, like you can't believe something 100% unless, you know, you go through it yourself and prove it to yourself. And I want to like congratulate you on, or maybe like I wanted to just tell you how proud I am of you, because I work with a lot of people, and one of the things that I think you did incredibly well was you literally threw yourself 100% in like this whole process. Like, it was so uncomfortable, it's so scary, and it felt like, you know, you almost like literally died in some way. And you didn't surrender immediately, but you did everything you could, and you took my advice and you took my tools and you actually applied them. And I think that's one of the reasons why you are so good the way you are today, was because you were not just determined to recover, you were determined to make this worth something. And I want to finish off by asking you two things. So first of all, one of the things Lauren and I talked a lot about was the metaphor of a butterfly, because, you know, this whole thing of, you know, going through a transformation, we kept like going back to the metaphor of the before process is like when you're a caterpillar, and then the whole process of the recovery is like this complete discomfort of being in this cocoon where you're stuck, where it's dark, where you feel like you can't get out. You also can't see what you're transforming into, but you just have to surrender, have faith, and then eventually you come out at the other end and you're a butterfly, and you look back and you see that it's all been worth it. And Lauren kept in this entire process almost every day seeing butterflies, like everywhere. It was like the universe was giving her signs like all the time. She would send me pictures every day of like a butterfly or a butterfly picture. And so my question is, so Lauren came to visit me in Belgium. We've actually become really close friends now, and she put a tattoo, and I wanted to ask you if you could show it.
Yeah, of course. Here it is here. And it's like, can you see?
Yeah, I can see it.
And it's, I have became, we joke about this now as well. It's like, I'm obsessed with butterflies now. I just find them so beautiful.
I just saw your ring as well.
I got that the other night and I messaged Robin, like, I cannot help myself. But yeah, I even forgot about that. Like that was like the kind of, you know, I used to ask, like when I was like really struggling, I would ask the universe, like, give me a sign, like just give me a sign that I'm doing the right thing, that like I'm on the right path, that like, you know, and I would see butterflies like every day, everywhere. It was always like a white butterfly. Like I would see, it was kind of that, because this is when I was starting to get better as well. So it was like kind of spring, summer, obviously like the season for that. But I had, it felt, I was like, this is for sure like signs. And like even anything that seemed to be around, it would always happen to me. And I just felt like I held on to that metaphor so much throughout the process. And it was like so meaningful to me. And it's like, it's just really the best way to sum it up in like a kind of,
That's true.
really. Like it was, for me, it was the most transformative process. And I'm so I'm just so glad. I'm so glad for all of it. Like I'm thankful for all of it, for every minute that I struggled, for every lesson that I learned, for everything that it's given me. And like that's why now everything that I see that's like a butterfly or with a butterfly on it, I'm like, as if like that's me. And I even started at the when I was like recovering, I started like seeing a guy, and he even used to see like butterflies when he was like working or whatever. He would send me a photo and be like, oh, that's you. And I was and it was just like a little sweet thing that just kind of meant a lot to me, and still does and always will. And that's why I was like, when I came to see you, I was like, should I get a butterfly tattoo? And you were like, oh my God, yes. Because we're there now, because that's, you know, we've been in the cocoon.
Full circle moment. We've achieved the point of the butterfly. The last question I want to ask you, Lauren, is if you could just in a few sentences tell people that are watching right now that are really struggling, like what is your number one advice to them? Like if you could picture them and just say what the best advice is that you could give them, what would it be?
Okay. It's hard because I could talk about this for days, right? But to sum it up, like lean into it. Really, really lean into it. The reason that I think I struggled a lot in the beginning was that I was rejecting it. I was refusing it. I was making it so much more difficult for myself because I was telling myself that it was wrong and that it shouldn't be happening, and that I shouldn't feel this way, and that there was something like not right with me. But when I started to just really accept it, to like to really go with it, to really just say, this is happening, but I'm going to live my life alongside it as best I can, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to just feel, even if it's 1%, 5% better in that moment. Those were the real things that started to accumulate. So don't, I know like you're struggling, and I know that, and it's so, and I'm getting emotional again thinking about anyone that's in that place right now, because it's so hard. Like it's so hard, and everything in you wants it to not be the case, and you're gonna try and fight it with everything that you have, but trust me, you're just gonna be exhausted, and it's not gonna help you. Like really just be compassionate with yourself, be slow with yourself, like give yourself the grace that you deserve, and like just try and believe in yourself that you can and you will come through it, but really lean into it. Really make it like that's why I'm so happy about it and so grateful about it, and why I can talk about it and I have no shame about it, and I'm so open about it now, is because I feel like if you let it, it can really work for you. It can really transform you. It can really, you can benefit from it. You can see the good in it. only if you allow it, you know.
Mhm.
So just go with it.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and you used to say that to me, and I was like, I don't want it. I'm not going with it. But when I did,
Mhm.
that was just the start of it.
Yeah.
Start of it coming
Thank you
together.
so much. I'm so happy we finally did this. Thank you so much, Laura, for everything you shared today and for being vulnerable and open. And yeah, maybe maybe that's a good idea. If anyone has like a question for Laura, and you can just leave it in the comments, and she might reply to it herself.
Yeah.
So feel free to do that. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thank Lauren for for being here today and for telling us your entire story. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
Bye.
So that was the end of this episode. I want to just quickly thank you guys for watching. I hope you got so much from this as I did. And let me know in the comments if you want to have more interviews like this. I'm going to try and make some work of that in the future to interview more clients of mine that have recovered. So yeah, I want to wish you a really lovely day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.